Welcome to Piccadilly. How are the trains doing? Stay tuned and all will be revealed. Well, this video was made with great intentions. Let's start with that, shall we? Well, first up is that Class 66 I bought a few months ago. I've got a Zemo decoder for it. Let's get it fitted. Right, okay then, let's get the body off. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, there's wires to be careful of. No, there's no wires, so that's all right, isn't it? And there's two arrows there. I just noticed that, so that's very helpful. Thank you, Dapple. Right, so this hopefully should be a nice, easy fit. Right, there it is. I thought it had gone for a second. So it looks like this does have a tail for a stay alive. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit that in there. I think I'll be, but to be honest with you, a 66 shouldn't really have too many issues. Right, so hopefully that'll be all right now. There's one wire pointing up and the other wire pointing down. So I'm going to leave them on for a little while and just place it on. And the next 18s are quite easy to fit. There should be, there we go, there's a nice satisfying little click there. Right, I was beginning to think this was going to be another one of those videos, or another one of those locomotives that is going to cause a problem, but it's fine. If I turn on function 1, I get the white lights. Function 0 doesn't do anything. If I hit function 2, I get the red lights come on as well. So if I turn off function 1, I can go that way and so on. Notice the red lights are on. Now the only way to turn those off is to turn off function 0. If I want the white lights on, this is where we remember that the white lights don't work. I know the red lights are on the wrong end, but I just wanted to show you that very, very slow crawl. That is impressive, isn't it? But it is a Zemo decoder, and they are pretty good, aren't they? But look at that. Right, next up, this is one of my N-gauge Class 350s, and if you remember, I've turned one of them into a complete dummy car and removed the motor so I can use that elsewhere with, say, a 185 or another 323, whatever. Now, to get this operational, it wasn't strong enough with one bogie motor, which is what they come with, and the other motor is free. It wasn't strong enough to pull all 8 coaches. It's strong enough to pull 4, but not 8. So I'm left with a quandary. What do I do? So I've been looking around to try and find a donor chassis to come up with, an 8-wheeled powered bogie, if you like. And I discovered that. And that was thanks to Jeff at Flint Hills, maybe a couple of years ago now, where he had his layout at a show, and I put the problem to him, and he said, I wonder, and he got one of these, and it fitted the body absolutely beautifully. And so you can see they are the same length, and the chassis, that is the chassis there, went in absolutely beautifully. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that the bogies on the 350 look like that, whereas the bogies on a bubble car look like that. So, am I going to change them? No, of course I'm not. It's N-gauge. You're going to notice the train, you'll notice the livery. You're certainly not going to be looking at the bogies, and not even any of this, to be honest. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to put it in exactly as it is. I might remove that tank, because that's one, because it's silver and it stands out, but two, you know, just to make it look a little bit more realistic. But other than that, I'm not going to worry about it. Right, so onto the couplings then. So you can see that I make my own couplings. Now there's a frame, which is a bit like a square U shape, and that white thing there is a pin that I put through. I 3D print these parts. So the pin goes through that hole there, and then I glue a magnet to the end just there. This is a raft, by the way, and I glue a magnet to the end there. It doesn't, this particular one needs a bit of filing down, but you can get the idea, can't you? So I've got two couplings, then that swing, okay? Bear in mind this is upside down. Now, that's the end of the train, by the way. But I have a problem, because the couplings on this bubble car, this one, are standard NEMs. So I'm in a quandary. What do I do? So I transfer this back to the NEM couplings. Well, this particular one, I can soon put a Rapido coupling on there, and that will be absolutely fine. But this is where it all went wrong. Time for a rethink. Right, this thing has led me a merry dance, I'm not going to lie, but I did have to go through all of the couplings on the whole train, and what I discovered was this is my setup. Well, first of all, so I've got a frame, and then I've got a pin with a magnet on the end, and there's a pin going down that way. So this bar with the magnet on it is allowed to turn sideways, and even has some up and down movement as well. Now, what was happening was that some of the units didn't have as much up and down movement as I would have liked, and nor did they have as much free sideways movement. Some of them were a little bit stiff, which meant that the couplings were keeping the train straight as opposed to flexing when it goes around a corner. So I've spent the last, I don't know, 5 hours trying to reprint a lot of the couplings, freeing up the damaged ones, replacing the parts, etc, etc, etc. And I'm hoping now that I've managed to get it going. Now, the one thing I will show you is on this particular unit. This is the powered unit. Now, hopefully you can see what's happened here. The couplings were on a very, very different trajectory to that. And that is the problem with different types of couplings. The trajectory, or the type of travel, whichever way you want to look at it, if it's different from one vehicle to the next vehicle, there will be derailments. So what I've done is I've literally just turned these round so that the actual NEM pockets are on the inside. Now that seems a little bit stiff, but that's black tack holding that together. Yeah, that's better. So that turns freely now, and I've just cut away some of this side wall here. And am I bothered? No, not in the slightest. I will, once I've got it running, I will just run over that with some brown paint to make it look a little bit similar to the rest. Now, but let's have a look. So I'll show you the powered vehicle first. Hopefully it'll work this time. Now, I'm a bit concerned, I'll be honest, that that powered vehicle is not strong enough. Well, certainly strong enough for that, and it's staying on the track. Okay, that's fairly convincing. I'm just going to bring it back the other way. Now, do bear in mind that the far end of the train doesn't have any lights, because there's going to be two units joined together. And so there will be lights on one end of that, whichever end it is. Let's try and see if it goes the other way. So you can see the lights have changed to red. You can make those out. Right, so I've got the dummy unit now with the 66, and yes, all the carriages have got lights on in this one. I'm really not going to worry about that at the minute. Let's get it running first. Relatively slowly at the moment. I mean, the thing that occurred to me, if all else fails and that motor unit isn't powerful enough, I can always couple the two together anyway, convert that back into dummy car and just have it running as a drag. The sound on this particular clip was terrible, so I've decided to do a voiceover. So what you'll see here is I've coupled the two 350s together, and it became bluntly obvious that the power unit that I'd bought was not strong enough to pull the whole train as it was. So what I decided to do was something like Richard did at New Junction with his Class 800, was to literally pack the power unit with weight. So I've probably added around about 40 to 50 grams. Now in N gauge that is quite a lot, and as you can see, it has made quite the difference. Okay, just thought I'd interject the video a little bit here. I have a Bachmann 36568 decoder, which basically is a rebranded Zemo, and this is the packaging it comes in, so you can see that this is this. Okay, so I've made it bigger so you can see. Now the idea would be that I fit this to this, because I'm finding that a lot of the trains, particularly in N gauge, need that little bit of extra help with the stay alive. But the problem being is that I'm not completely sure on how to wire it. Now, what I've read online is that the ground obviously is that one there, which will be your negative, and that is that one just there. Seems to be something on the end of that. So that one just there, the top one. And the positive is the third one up from the bottom, which is that one, i.e. there. Yeah, common positive. Now, what I don't want to do is just wire it up and then find out I've actually got it wrong, because the potential danger of wiring a capacitor wrongly, I've heard that they can get very hot very quickly and even explode, and that's not something I really want to experience, to be fair. So if there's anybody who's absolutely sure on how to wire these, so somebody who's done it a few times and you had success with this particular decoder, and not necessarily this particular stay alive, but you know, using a capacitor with this particular decoder, I would be really interested to hear from you. Have I got that right? The top one being negative and the third one up from the bottom being the positive. Okay, thanks very much. I appreciate your help in advance. Okay, so on to the 323. Now I am going to stay with familiar ground for this one because I'm going to be using the AE decoders. So that's a 6-pin, and then you've got the stay alives just there. This one, I had a wire come off, so I just had to resolder those wires back on. So that's all good, it should be fine. Now, this particular one doesn't have the plug, but luckily I had another particular decoder where I had to fit the plug through a very tiny socket, or a very tiny hole in the locomotive in the 6-wheel pecket. And so it was easier to cut that off and then just hardwire it straight to the stay alive. So there I've got a plug which I can then solder onto there. Now what we've got here, as you may remember, I made this a couple of years ago along with the 185. It is starting to show a little bit of sort of age, if you like. It needs a little bit of repainting just across the cant there, the cant rail, but that's absolutely fine. I can do that. And this was all 3D printed. The sides were made from styrene on the Cricut machine. then backed up with a piece of acetate, so you get that pretty much flush glaze there, and there's a 3D printed support behind all that. So it runs fairly well, and you can see I've got the couplings that I've had on 350s. So it's the same sort of coupling system. Now for the motor on this, and it is a little bit more tricky to come out because, as you can tell, that's a 3D printed part, and I just put it on. I've got a chassis, okay, which I've kind of butchered a little bit. So I've put in a standard, I think this is an old sound decoder, to be honest, by the looks of things, but obviously the sound doesn't work. So it might be that I just chose to use that, just to use it up basically. So I'm going to take that off. Now you might be saying, well, why am I doing this? Well, because it needs some help with the stay alive. I think I need to cut that bit off. Yeah, it looks like an old sound decoder, to be honest. I am looking into the possibility of getting a lock programmer, but I'm not sure it's going to do Zemo chips, so I might have to buy a second. But anyway, that can go into the box. I've got a feeling that came out of the Pendolinos, but again, I'm not totally sure. So the idea is, like I said, I'm going to put this with the soldered tabs onto there, and then put the stay alive in there as well. You can see there's plenty of room. I should hopefully be able to get that in. Oh, that's popped out, so I need to put that back in somehow, but I can sort that. So yes, one step at a time, eh? I'll come back to you shortly. Right, as you saw, I've taken the body off, and the chassis has literally disintegrated. You can see there is that piece, there you go, it's just come off. There's no strength in it whatsoever, and I am not able to mount the bogies properly. There's a cardon shaft that needs to go into the motor there, both ends, and that's not going to work. So I think I'm going to have to either remake this chassis, reprint it, or it might be a better idea to go for a complete redesign and see what else I can come up with. But what I can be sure of is that this is not going to work in this video. Sorry. Okay then, so we move on. That is quite disappointing and potentially annoying, to be honest, that has fallen apart in the way it has. But you know, these things happen, don't they? So I'll investigate that, and I may see if I've got another motor, and I might even be able to use one of those bogie powers or motor units to drive one bogie. I don't know, we'll see. It's only 3 car in it. But anyway, I wonder if this is going to happen with this one, but I've got a feeling this is the other design that I used. This was the newer design that I chose with one motor bogie. So this is the 185, and there's one of the ends. I'll just give that a bit of a tap there. Hopefully you can see that better. Now it is N gauge, obviously, just bear that in mind, but I am going to try and make some new bodies for this, if not actually another train, to be honest, because the body is more blue than silver. This bit here, there and all along here, should be silver, like an aluminium type silver, as opposed to that which looks like a very pale blue grey. Anyway, yes, this is the other type of bogie that I tried. So this is more based on the Farish 350 with the motor unit, where you've got seats at one end, and then you've got one bogie power, and the motor is all in this unit as well. There is a possibility Bachmann Spares might have some more of these in now, because they've recently re-released the 350 in N gauge, so they might have some spares in. But anyway, the point is, can we fit a stay alive? Well, in fact, this one's already got a stay alive, so I don't need to do anything to that. And actually that is quite comforting to see that, you know. But anyway, let's get these running on the layout and enjoy them again. I'll catch you later. Well, as I bring you round with the HST, oh, a little bit off there, but never mind. And as you can see, that's running just as nicely as the Pullman was last week. Now, my question was, how are the trains doing? Well, you've just seen the HST is running absolutely beautifully, as is the 185. And as I proved and showed, that had already got a stay alive in it. In fact, that did so well, it literally just pulled out of Piccadilly without a stutter. So I can't argue with that, can I? That is running absolutely beautifully. And if I can get that livery sorted out, that'll be a gorgeous train, I am certain. Even though I say it myself. Now, as I pan you across, I come across to the 350. Oh, the 37 running absolutely beautifully as well. So, fantastic. But what's happened to that class 350? Well, it ran absolutely beautifully on the test track, and I had it running for well over 2 hours, an hour or more in each direction. So it shows then, with the extra weight, that that power car down there, the one with the lights off, is strong enough to pull the train. Hallelujah. So I'm very, very happy about that. But what's going on here? Why is it stopped on the main line and why is it not running? Well, it's down to that third carriage. The front bogie of that third carriage kept popping the track, and as it's on the outside line, it would be going on the other side of that scenic break there, down this side along platform 13, and it was popping a wheel down there, and we're getting to this point and it'd be popping it back on again. But to be honest, I can't have trains doing that, because, you know, if it doesn't catch it right one time, then it caused a huge problem. And yes, it did short out probably a couple of times, which, you know, as I said, I've got to sort it out. So that train needs more work. But I also pointed at the fact there's a 37 on there on the layout as well. Where it is at the moment, I think it's in Piccadilly Station. It must be coming round very, very soon. But why, here it is. Why is the 37 pulling the China clay? And why is the Cemex 66 not pulling the China clay? Well, as you saw, it ran beautifully on DC. It ran beautifully on DCC. Can't argue with that. But when I put it on Piccadilly, yes, it ran beautifully, except it kept derailing on that point there. And I thought I'll try it on this track and that point down there. So what's actually happening with that, off the top of my head, I don't know, further investigation. But I'm suspecting that one of the bogies is a little stiff and it's not allowing quite so much up and down movement. So, you know, I'm going to have to investigate that. But there we go. Now, finally, you also saw the Class 150. Now, I put an AE decoder in that with a stay alive, and it absolutely transformed it. The amount of run on there must be 5-6 seconds, which is absolutely beautiful for a train of that size. So I can't argue with that. Now, when it was over on platform 1 of Piccadilly, and Billy's remember the 323 was supposed to do that journey to Glossop, it didn't move. It died for some reason, so I had to take the body off again, and a little bit of fiddling sort of made it work again. And I managed to get it to go all the way along here, all the way along there, up there. I'll tell you about that in a second. All the way round here, along here, and I've terminated at Dinting. Why? Well, I did take it along as if we're going to Glossop, and then it gets to about this point, and I think the power was cut because the train seemed to glide along here and stop around that point. On a second attempt, after cleaning the track again, I managed to get it to the entrance of Glossop and no further. So again, more investigation. I think the track has lost power for some reason. Now, I did say what's going on over here. Well, if you remember last week, I stuck that back scene back up again. Well, it's tilting forward and it did catch the 150. So I'm not sure quite what to do about that at the moment. I'm going to have to think about it because that back scene is tilting forward by quite a lot. The joys, eh? The joys. But there we go. I think I am going to leave the video there because there's been quite a lot happening this week, and some good and some, well, yeah. I'm thinking of that 323. I can't, what can you say? But anyway, I'll speak to you very, very soon here on Piccadilly. You take care of yourself, and bye for now.